Every life has a soundtrack. Join me as we invite guests to share their journey through music, one song at a time. 10 moments, 10 memories. I'm your host, Sean, and welcome to 10 Tracks.
Are you ready?
Welcome to 10 Tracks. My guest today is Kelly Orchard. Kelly's a second generation radio veteran, licensed psychotherapist, author, and certified badass on a mission to help creatives and communicators flip the format on fear. Kelly, welcome to 10 Tracks.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. This is right up my alley.
Where are you in the world?
Right now, I am in Mesa, Arizona, which is
Okay.
about 40 minutes east of Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my RV, I'm just kind of stationary for the winter.
So this is what you've been on. You've been in an RV for the last, how
3
long
years.
now? Three
Yeah.
years. Wow.
3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And exactly where have you been traveling around or going?
Well, just this past summer, I went from here, from California. That's where I originate from. I
Hmm.
went all the way from California to Kentucky. It just kind of, but I went by way of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and into Kentucky. Stayed there for a while, and then went up through Iowa, Nebraska to South Dakota over to Wyoming and down into Utah. So I traveled this summer. I had a 5 month tour on the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
just like exploring once you get there, do you stay and do things or you just kind of just taking advantage of the land and
both, a little bit of both, but I wasn't really on a mission, but I've traveled the country my entire life in an RV and I wanted to have a purpose of a place to go. And so I really just kind of recruited my friends in the radio community. Like the interest said, I'm a second generation radio broadcaster. And so I basically said, give me a reason to come to your community. And so they did, and I was visiting radio stations and doing a podcast of called Radio Is Not Dead and just
Mhm.
interviewing my radio friends at their station about what they do in their community. So that's kind of how the tour plan was arranged geographically. It was like they invited me and okay, that's where I'm going then. So that's how that that's how that worked out.
Wow. That is definitely I mean Jack Kerouac's got nothing on you in terms of free spirit and just kind of going with it. Um
Thanks. Yeah.
you just mentioned radio but also growing up in LA. Is that where
Yes.
most of your
Yeah.
roots are? Okay.
Yep.
And then you got into radio through your father who was also in the radio.
Yes, he was an engineer in Los Angeles radio for 21 years, and it was always his dream to build, own, and operate his own radio station. So when I was in high school, we moved from LA to a small town in California and built our first of 5 radio stations. So that's how I got
Wow.
started. Yeah. It was like
Okay.
after school chores. Yeah.
So were you kind of behind the scenes with the radio station, like
No,
production?
I was everything. I was on the air. I was doing promotions and public service. I was doing the traffic and the billing, all operations. I became like a utility player. I could do all roles. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now also tell me about your traveler, that's your companion that's with you.
Oh yeah, my dog, he's a golden retriever. And he's 3 years old. So I got him 1 week after I started this journey. So he's been with me the entire time. And he was
Wow.
only an 11-week-old puppy. So he doesn't know any different than traveling with mama. And his name is Kismet. And he's part of my adventures. I do a podcast and I call it Kismet Adventures and Serendipitous Encounters. And then the radio is not dead is like a subset of that because sometimes the dog appears in the radio podcasts. So yeah, he's sitting right here at my feet. He might appear to get a little hug or show me his toy while we're recording.
Okay.
Yeah,
Two for the price of one.
yeah.
That was good.
He's used to this with me sitting here talking into a computer. So he's like, "What are we doing now?" Yeah.
We were just talking offline, and it's really interesting because in a welcome, uh, you were sharing a little bit about being a psychotherapist, but also music and the radio side has had music obviously been a
Yeah.
big imprint in your life growing up,
Right.
but
Yeah.
also currently with your work still today,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
picking 10 tracks, was it easy or was it
Oh, it was a
somewhat
piece
of
of
a
cake. I just had to look at my list of songs that are already on my own. I call it a badass soundtrack. And
okay.
badass is really an acronym. That I use psychotherapeutic tools to help you improve, your mindset. And so creating the badass soundtrack music is the ultimate psychologist. You don't need me to tell you that. But
Mhm.
it can lift you up, it can build your confidence, it can help you with your emotions, it can quiet you down, if you're a little anxious, and music can do so much for you. And so I do utilize the benefits of music with my clients. And the way that I discovered this particular method was a therapeutic technique called heart math, which is based on science. You're familiar with heart math? It's based on science
No.
on how we think and attaching emotions and getting our heart brain into coherence. So basically, our heart has more neurons and sensitivities than our brain does, and we need our heart needs to tell our brain what's really going on emotionally, and that's how we can reduce the impact of stress or anxiety or depression. So I became certified in that, and the technique, there's a lot of different techniques, but one of them is holding an emotion for 3 minutes. And when I was first introduced to this, my granddaughter had just been born, so I was able to imagine holding my brand new granddaughter in my arms for 3 minutes, and it was such joy and emotion and happiness. And so that's the technique. You do that with a happy, joyful emotion, and it will change your nervous system. It'll get your brain in coherence and calm down the neurotransmitters in your brain. Well, that's really hard. 3 minutes is a really long time to hold on
Yeah.
to a thought. Well, so I started attaching it to songs that were meaningful. You listen to a song, how long is a song? On average, about 3 minutes. So if you can
Yeah.
attach a song to that emotion, then when you listen to that song, it's not very hard to hang on to the emotion because you've already got the memory and everything, and you're bopping to the music. And so that's how I created it. And so these songs that make you feel badass,
Yeah.
so be yourself, awareness, confidence, standing up for yourself when you need to, and those what those songs represent for you.
And I was thinking about this as I was listening to your 10 tracks, and we'll go through them in chronological as you shared them. But and I also kind of was thinking, what do all of them have in common? Or there seems to be some sort of similar thread as I was listening and going through them, but things like resilience, perseverance, authenticity, connection. And then when I look at your other work, it's no surprise that these will have um, and they're, as we will share, you're not just talking about one generation or one type of decade of songs. You're quite
Right, or
your
a genre.
your
I'm
mix
all over
is
the board. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
it's inspiring to see different music influences that have been able to be included in your badass playlist and
yeah.
picks. How does this resonate with some of your clients that you?
Oh, I have proof of concept. They love it. They're always going back to music. I'm always reminding them when they're anxious. It's like, what's your badass song for that? And so it's a constant in my practice of the music, and yes, my influences are very eclectic. So, yeah.
I had a guest a couple of weeks ago who came on and we recorded, and the episode will air, later. But one of the stories she shared with me was quite horrific to do with her children, and something horrible that happened with them. But she has a song that they've taken that really disturbing and horrible moment in their life that's with them, and they found a song that could kind of let them release it and celebrate and find joy out
Hmm.
of to come from that situation and that
Yeah.
traumatic story. And I was really impressed because, again, I understand if it's something that is personal that you have to overcome, but when it's also to do with your family or your children and something that as the mother who had to stand by and see this,
Right.
and then kind of work through their pain and what's in and everything to do. It was quite overpowering. Just to me, it was
Right.
just like,
Yeah.
and then this song now, I know the song and I, like the song, but now it's got such a new meaning and so
Different meaning for
much. It,
you.
it, it but it
Yeah.
also has, it's actually given it more, how do you say, kind of strength. Because it was
Yeah.
already a kind of a song I thought was, this is a good song. It's got so much depth. It's a female singer who I thought, okay, this has a very strong female voice. Now, the way that she's attached her story to it, it's actually given it such a strong, it's almost got more of a shield, of strength and resilience. So I'm curious if there's guests or your clients when they're working with you, how they share something that's traumatic that they have to
Mm-hmm.
work through and have to find a way to find
Mm-hmm.
this, golden light rather than just staying
Yeah.
in this dark
The
place.
song, the song that becomes bittersweet and makes you cry a little bit, but it's also healing at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. In fact, some of my songs are that for me. Yeah.
Well, let's jump into your playlist now.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
start with track one. This
Yep.
is Kansas. Carry on, Wayward Son.
Right. Yeah. Kansas, are you familiar with the band
Yeah,
Kansas?
of course.
They were a very popular band, rock and roll band in the 70s. And so the era now growing up in Los Angeles, my dad worked at the radio station, one of the top radio stations in Los Angeles. And one of the perks of working in radio was that you could bring home vinyl records that the record labels would send to the station.
Yeah.
Well, so I was the youngest. I had three older brothers, and my dad would bring home records, and it would be like Halloween trick or treat candy. We would pick through it and get what we want, you know. And I would always because I was the youngest and the only girl and the baby, I wouldn't get the cream of the crop music, you know, songs. I would get whatever. I think that's why my musical taste became so eclectic. I'd get these really off the wall songs that weren't even going to make it on the radio. But also my dad sometimes would, you know, take a request. I think he witnessed this going on. He was like, he would take turns on who got to pick what he brought home. So one day he brings home this album and it's Kansas Leftoverture. And I wanted that album because, and my brother got mad, my middle brother, Buck, he got mad because he was a big fan of Kansas and he was more in that age demographic of liking that music. I was still a little kid, maybe 10 or 11, but it was a hit song on the radio, Carry On Wayward Son, and I wanted that record. And he was mad. He is the only reason you want that record is because of that one song. And well, he was right, but I still wanted it. And that
Yeah.
was a period where I stood up for myself and I held my ground and I took that record with me. And what I ended up doing was I wanted to prove him wrong also. I listened to that album inside out and backwards and knew it fluidly and would play it as loud as I could out of my bedroom just to brag that I took the album. And it's still to this day, it is one of my favorite albums. And the reason why it resonates so much with me is that my brother Buck was 4 years older than me, and when I was a teenager at 19 and he was 23, he was killed in a car accident. So the memory of being able to establish a bond between my brother and I and attach it to this song and this album and me standing up for myself, and we actually grew a really good bond about becoming Kansas fans together. He would share his other albums with me eventually, and so the song really is meaningful for me because of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I remember the song. Obviously, I was a little bit young at the time, but probably in the early or mid 70s when this came out. I think it was 76. It
Yeah,
came out
something
around.
like that. But you know, it's a
Uh,
classic hit now, so it's like it's still played on the radio everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to go back and listen to it because
Yeah.
it's still relevant. It's still quite a strong song. I
Yeah.
think about some of these and going from 70s, 80s, where some songs they obviously time or date. You could think, okay,
Mhm.
wow, that was very of that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Whereas other songs, they still have such a strong
Yeah.
they
Well,
can keep going.
exactly. I love the album. It's a very kind of spiritual album for me when you listen to it and you listen to what all the songs are about. And Carry On Wayward Son is basically about, you're kind of lost and you're kind of, you're tired and you're worn out, but carry on. You're gonna get there. You're gonna
Yeah.
get where you need to be. Just carry on. And I think that that's why I also love it as well. It's got a lot of meaning for me.
Um, when did you write your book? Were you already in the RV, or was this pre-RV and then you did the tour with it?
Which book? The Dead Air
The
book?
Radio is Not Dead,
Oh, radio. Yeah, that's a podcast.
the
That's not a book.
podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dead Air, The Day the Music Died, that's the book
Yes, that's
that's
the novel. Yeah, that
okay.
I wrote. And I started writing it in the trailer. Yeah.
You started it
And
in the trailer. Okay.
yeah, well, the idea for the story came about. See, after we had operated our radio stations, and we did that for almost 20 years, my dad and I moved into consulting, and we were doing FCC compliance inspections for radio and TV stations, which is why visiting radio stations is so natural and normal for me. I've done it for 20 years with my dad. And the idea was born from that. The setting of the book is Los Angeles, Mount Wilson. We spent a lot of time on Mount Wilson. The storyline came because of discussions with engineers, so it's a very plausible story. Um, and so, but I was also raising kids at the time that the idea came about. The idea is probably 18, 20 years old too.
Hmm.
But I just never had time to write it, and so this was my opportunity. In fact, the trailer life was now's the time to write because being a novelist is something I've always wanted to do. And so I started writing it and taking my notes and working it out while I was in the trailer, and then my dad died and the story paused for a few months. But then through my grief of trying to work things out with the grief over my dad, I picked up the book again and started writing it, and it became a whole different ball game for me because now I'm imagining my dad in my head helping me with the dialogue or chuckling and telling me how clever I am while I'm writing. So yes, it happened during the period where I've been doing the RV life, where I'm isolated in the wilderness and have nothing else to do but work out dialogue and write a story.
So are you slightly um jaded with the radio kind of in the music industry, or where are you with all this now?
Well, it's this book. Actually, I had, becoming a psychotherapist. That was a transition that I had to make due to a health issue. So I've been practicing for 10 years and kind of out, like you said, out of radio, not really jaded by it, but just like I don't, there's nothing really for me to do after consulting unless I do more consulting. And I
Hmm.
had attempted to actually try to introduce mental health training and workshops, kind of develop those soft leadership skills that are so necessary in every industry. But then COVID happened, and had to like, okay, that's not gonna happen right now. I got other things I
Yeah.
have to do. And so, but over the course of writing this novel, it's sort of reintroduced me to my colleagues in radio. And so that's how The Radio Is Not Dead was born. I'm sort of reintroducing myself as this mental health person, radio consultant, which led to another book, so and it's just been kind of an ongoing. I'm just sort of watching it evolve as it happens. Am I jaded about the radio industry? It's definitely not what it used to be, what I grew up in. It is got a lot of transformations that it's got to do and reinvention and innovation, but I'm just here to like help them with their mental health stuff if they need that. Help give them some
Yeah.
guidance so they can flip the format on their fear and be that reinventing person and tap into their creative energy and reduce the burnout and probably the jadedness that is in the business right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine that with current stream and access to music, to communicate, like podcasts or other types of audiences or influential people, it must be hard to still have people listening. I mean, I know there's local radio stations here in France that are in English that I listen to quite regularly when I'm in the car, and there's certain times when you get that sort of morning slot or afternoon slot, which obviously they use on purpose because that's the peak of
Right.
driving.
Yeah.
Um, but it is, you know, growing up, I remember radio was, it did have a bit of a community feel to it. You know, you were
Yeah.
connected to the city. They had a lot of things that, and even in big cities, you connected to your
To the
city.
local radio. Yeah.
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 So it is, it's a shame that this is something that th- I feel like the record industry and possibly um, the radio are the slowest, and the film industry, it's going to happen to them as well. But I feel like they're the slowest to just embrace all of this disruption and change, and kind of lean into it rather than fighting it for so long
Yeah.
as they have.
That's exactly it. Lean into it rather than fighting it. Exactly. I agree with you. I think that there's a shift going on right now. I'm sort of witnessing it by the people that I'm talking to. I did this tour of these radio stations that I visited this past summer are small market, independently owned. They're running their own show. Not a whole lot has changed for them. They're still doing it exactly like you discussed. A community station involved in the local stuff that's going on. And yes, even struggling with the whole digital concept and everything, and they're trying to figure it out. But in some of those small markets, it's not really relevant,
Hmm.
digital. So it's like it's the major markets, and I do this because it's like we're talking about East Coast, West Coast, the major markets who are scrambling to figure out how to battle digital and podcasting and video versus audio but it is evolving and it is renovating. The industry is very passionate about, you know, staying relevant, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad to be, jumping back in at this juncture because I think 10 years ago, if I would have stayed doing what I was doing, yes, I would have been absolutely jaded and ready to get out.
Right.
But now I'm that unicorn. It's like I'm not jaded, I'm experienced. I'm having fun over here. Let's go,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring some more fresh energy to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's jump to track two. This is
Okay.
Billy Joel.
Yeah.
It's still rock and roll to me. I think this is
Yeah.
from 1980.
1980. Yeah. This is a song I was a teenager when this song came out, and we had just moved from Los Angeles to Victorville, like I said, a small town in the high desert of California, to build the radio station. So this was a hit that summer that we were building the station. And so I still had a lot of freedom. I was just making friends in town. I'd met some kids who owned a boat, so I was learning how to water ski on a little lake, and it was just a really fun summer. And that song was the number one hit that year.
Yeah.
And so I was that just epitomizes my entire 16th year for me of fun and engage having a good time and joyful and learning how to water ski, and it was just a good time as a teenager. So that's what that takes me back to, fun times. Yeah.
This is off of his the album was Glass House, and I
Glass
remember
houses. Yeah.
1980.
Right.
And I remember this was probably the first Billy Joel record that I really remembered hearing. I think my parents had the cassette,
Yeah.
and it was kind of played it on,
All
repeat
over the place. Yeah.
with a lot of the songs off there, but really
Yeah.
kind of you hear it on the radio, but then you would also hear it, like if you
Yeah.
had, um,
Yeah.
but a really strong sound too.
Yeah. Well, and this is the song that really introduced me to Billy Joel as a teenager. It's like, yeah, he had a lot of ballads and he had some hits prior to Glass Houses, no doubt. But I was also, like too young to be a fan at that point, but at 16, that hit a pinnacle point for me, and I've been a big, huge Billy Joel fan ever since. Seen him multiple times in concerts. I love his music. And if anybody was to say, if you were stuck on an island and you could only have one artist to listen to for the rest of your life, who would it be? It's like, for me, it would be Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all of his stuff. Well, majority of his stuff. Yeah.
Do you think new artists now, radio works or makes sense for them when it comes to their music on the radio if they're not obviously these select few that are massively huge?
Well, radio definitely, statistics show that radio definitely has a big influence on music tastes, but for discovering new music, no, they're able to release their own music on streaming. And so for music discovery, radio isn't even really relevant. But I
Yeah.
think that, radio still has an impact on playing the music, talking about the artist, getting fan response, things like that. That's what radio can do. Yeah.
I remember, and I was talking to another guest who obviously was into a couple of genres like punk and things like that in the 80s. And so again, when Billy Joel's this in 1980, I remember around 82 getting into punk.
Hmm.
And there was a local radio station through the university campus that would play, which you could get in New Orleans where I grew up. And so that was like they had a special show every, I think it was once a week on Fridays at, at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And so you would, I was probably still too young to really go out, but you'd want to try to record this so you could hear these bands that they were trying to turn you on to or introduce you to, which you would never get it on the main radio stations, in New Orleans because it's rock, pop, not even
Yeah,
rap
whatever
then.
sells. Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
maybe there was a country station and there's oldies, and I
Yeah.
think I probably gravitated more to the oldies because there
Yeah.
was, the music was still quite a lot of energy.
Right.
Um, but just that sort of enthusiasm for wanting to be able to. And I think nowadays, streaming is obviously, and it's interesting where films, commercials try to pick certain music, whether it's new music or maybe it's the record labels that are trying to push these songs from these new artists that they are working with into these films to try to
Yeah.
get more visibility.
Yeah, that's called it's product placement, and they
Yeah.
actually get paid to do that kind of stuff. And it's a way to, the music. I'm not as familiar with the music industry as I am with the radio industry, but I know that music industry has changed so much, even with royalties and licensing fees and everything else, that it's nearly impossible to even make a living off of a hit song. And so that's
Yeah.
why they're putting them into films, because they can make a bundle of money, by contracting to write music for the film, with the anticipation that it'll become a hit because of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But in the early days of radio, were there a lot of record labels trying to
Oh,
influence
yeah.
what you played by plugging their albums of their
Oh
artists?
yeah, yeah. In the early days of radio, keep in mind that 70s and 80s there wasn't as many radio stations. There've been more have been built, and now it's like so the frequencies were. That's why the formatting was so not as fragmented as it is now. Now there's just more options, and
Hmm.
so yes, record labels would compete to be able to get their music played. Radio actually had to instill some laws about pay for play, because they would bribe them with gifts and what have you to get them to play the music. It's all very scandalous. But yeah, record labels would definitely fight for airtime. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's jump to track 3. This
Okay.
is Three Dog Night, Joy to the
Yes.
World.
Right. Okay. That is we were an oldies radio station at this time. So Three Dog Night was considered oldies at the time. And this is just a song for me that kind of encapsulates that particular era of running the family radio station. It's just we had flipped to oldies, but we'd actually started with that format, and here we are 15 years later, and now it's an oldie. And so my brother was actually doing the morning show. This is my brother Scott at the time. He was the one closest to me in age. Our brother Buck was already gone. So now there
Mhm.
was just my two older brothers and me and my parents running the radio station. We had a staff, we had a newsman. We were a fully operational radio station. And my brother was doing morning show. And they have um, this traffic service, like traffic and weather service. It's not, the person's not in the station. They're calling in from an outside source, third party
Right.
vendor. And so we had our guy his name was David Jeremiah. His real name was David Mullins, and we knew him personally. And I think he lived in town, but he was doing the phone calls for all over the state for the traffic, right? So it was time for him to do the traffic and weather, and my brother would introduce him, and he would use this as his theme song because his name was Jeremiah. So he would do the intro during the song and say, okay, everybody, it's time for the traffic report with my good friend David. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. So it went right into the song. And
Yeah.
then, then he'd come in during the mix of it, because he says, and we sure love to drink his wine. And he'd come back and he'd say, but we're not drinking wine now because we're doing traffic, right? We're not on the road. And so it was just, it just like, for me, it's just like that little bit just reminds me of the fun that we had, because we
Hmm.
weren't a corporate radio station. We were independently owned. It was just me and my brothers deciding what went on the air. My dad would always laugh about it. He wasn't that uptight manager guy. So we were just having kicks, having a ball. And that song just really just reminds me of that era in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that must have been really interesting to have a family-owned radio station, so everybody is kind of playing a part or involved,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's completely supported by your parents and kind
Yeah.
of engaged in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it was when I tell when people learn about my upbringing, I always, I say it's like it was kind of like the family farm. We all had a role to play, but this was a radio station,
That's the
and
farm.
that was the farm. Yeah, so my job, in the early years was to come home from school and do the 4, 5, and 6 o'clock news live. And then I'd have to be out there in the weekends working, doing whatever else. And so that's how I earned my stripes or, cut my teeth in the broadcast industry was literally just doing every single job that you had to do, you know. So
Yeah. How did you pivot to being a psychotherapist?
well, that is part of the arc in my story.
Okay.
It's in 2006, I found myself hospitalized. I was in heart failure. And it
Okay.
was because of an arrhythmia that had gone undiagnosed. We don't really know what the arrhythmia was caused. It was an electrical malfunction, not a plumbing problem with my heart. So it wasn't a heart attack. It was an arrhythmia that had caused my heart to beat so erratically that I went into heart failure and had no idea, none whatsoever.
Wow.
And it sent me, I'd spent a few days in the hospital and my cardiologist said, we gotta take care of this or we're going to be doing a heart transplant on you because you have the heart of an 80-year-old woman right now. It really just it took me down. And so business struggled. I was a single mom, 3 kids, teenagers, financial problems now, medical issues. I was on extensive medications. I had to have a surgical procedure, pacemaker implanted, heart rewired. It was a 2-year battle. And when
Wow.
all was said and done, I had experienced depression I'd never experienced before. I'd seen my parents and my children all kind of panicking about what was going to happen with me, and we really had nowhere to go for support or resources or help with this whole thing. And that kind of led me to decide I want to help people who have gone through some sort of a major life crisis like this. And
Yeah.
so that kind of sent me on the path to go to grad school. I'd already had a bachelor's degree. So I went to grad school and earned a master's in psychology. And this was after I tried to acquire some radio stations. And so when that failed, it was like, all right, next we got to do something else. I can't be in a stressful business anymore. And so that
Yeah.
led me to grad school, and it took 5 years to get my license. But meanwhile, I was still doing some inspections with dad here and there. So I always kept kind of a little foothold in broadcast, but I was transitioning to mental health. And so I've been operating a private practice for 10 years, well, 12 years now, I think I've been licensed. Yeah.
And this would have been a time, was there a lot already, was the internet already a resource or anything like that when this happened? Were you already having tools to kind of at your disposal?
There was the internet, but it's like 2006, and I remember being at this function in Washington D.C. with broadcasters, and one of my cohorts asking me, "Well, do you have a Facebook? Let's connect on Facebook." It was so brand new, I mean,
Yeah.
like it was like I was like I'm familiar with Facebook. I mean, it was like MySpace was for the teenagers. And so, yeah, there was, you could do searches, and I was doing searches. I was getting in support groups and I was researching my symptoms and whatnot. But you know what happens when you research symptoms on the internet? You go
Hmm.
down the rabbit hole. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. So I needed real life people. I really needed like emotional support. And that's really hard to come by when you're strictly looking at online forums, you know?
Yeah.
So, and my kids are, it's like, I was so focused on my medical condition that I was just observing the emotions, and teenagers are going to act out one way or the other. And I knew they were acting out in fear, like, and my parents too, they'd already lost a son. So it was really important to me. It's like, I'm going to be the one that has to take care of them in their old age. And they're looking at me and having to take care of me. So there was a lot,
A lot of pressure
a
on you
lot,
as well.
a lot
Yeah.
going on. Yeah.
As um the industry evolved since when you got into this and you started to do your master's in this and get registered.
The radio industry or the mental health industry?
Mental health.
Mental health, has it changed? Yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't really know much about it before I got into it, so I
Right.
don't really, I know that a lot of therapists had complained that reimbursements for insurance had gone down, but I didn't know any different, so that was irrelevant to me. Um, I know that there's a lot of different methods for therapeutic interventions that are being created and developed. But I always go back to the basics of foundations of cognitive behavioral therapy, because they all basically are built upon that. So has the industry changed? I wouldn't really know, except for COVID opened up the opportunities for telehealth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah,
so
for
we could
sure.
do it remotely, which is gives me the ability to still work as a therapist, doing phone sessions and being somewhere else. So if anything, that's how it's changed in the time that I've been in the business.
And I mean, my question was directly, obviously, how it's impacting your work and in the industry. I think mental health in general, though, has I don't want to say skyrocketed. It's not trying to sound more dramatic, but I feel like it's a lot. It has opened up with so much as people identify it and can
Yeah.
realize that there are certain mental health issues that possibly everyone has, or
Yeah, I don't really know if it's necessarily bigger. I think that there's just more awareness. I would
yeah,
really say then that the mental health industry has done a pretty good job of reducing the stigma of admitting that you need some help.
right.
And I think there's that because I keep an eye on the statistics, and in the United States it's still about 25 to 30% people struggle with some sort of a mental health issue, anxiety, depression, and such. Did it increase during COVID? Absolutely. Is it still the same? Yes, definitely. You know, like around 30% people. And I was attributed to that looking at if you had a room of 8 people, two of those people in that room are depressed or anxious. And if it's not somebody you're looking at, then it might be you, you
Right.
know? So
Has there any discussions in your circles about how making more awareness or even um, training or educating through school? And I don't mean once you get to this graduate level
right.
or to maybe go into that profession, but you know, PTSD is something that people don't really, unless you know somebody who has it, and then you have to learn about it.
Yeah.
Whereas it's the same with finance.
Yeah.
School doesn't really teach you about finance,
Right.
and then you're in debt.
Yeah.
How did So I'm just,
Yeah.
it's strange that this wouldn't be something that would be part of teaching you math, teaching you English, but also teaching you how to the struggles
Hmm.
that people go to. They try to
Yeah.
teach you history, a version of
Yeah.
it, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just curious that why this wouldn't be something. Um,
I agree with you. I would love that it could be, and it's like I'm not really on the academic side of mental health. I think that a lot of it comes from the mental health practitioners themselves who do the psychoeducation. I even had a conversation with a radio consultant, and he'd never heard the term psychoeducation before
right.
until I brought it up. And so there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I'm kind of I don't know if I'm coining it or if I read it somewhere, but what you're talking about is like mental health hygiene, you know?
That's a
Like
good. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like do you have hygiene in the morning? You shower, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you get dressed, you have that hygiene, you have your hygiene at bedtime, you have your teeth hygiene. Like we need to embrace mental health hygiene and doing regular practice of monitoring our mental health. And
Yeah.
if we do that before we begin the day, and that's what I teach my clients. I teach them kind of to bookend their day. We do something in the morning and then we do something at bedtime, and it helps to improve your mindset,
Do
rewiring
you
the brain. Yeah.
Do you work with things like breath work or other areas that could kind of give them this kind of emotional, meditative types of connection?
Yeah, that's what the heart math does. Heart math is, a lot of breathing. I also use neuroscience, neuroplasticity. neuroplasticity techniques and
Mhm.
positive psychology. And a lot of that is a lot of just like psychoeducation, but the reminder of the gratitude, gratitude journal, it always seems like it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna make me be thankful stuff. No, it actually is changing your brain chemistry. So I give them simple tools, but then I explain why it's important. And then it's like, but you don't need to know why it's important later. You just keep doing it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just kind of teach it simply, like if they were in kindergarten until they graduate, and then I can say, now this is what you've been doing all along. Oh, really? Kind of a thing. I
yeah.
wish that it was easier to spread the word, and I try to do that, but the internet is a very crowded place. So,
True. Right.
yeah, yeah.
We jump to track 4. This
Okay.
is Megan Trainor, No Excuses.
Yeah. Yeah. That's um that's just a song that reminds me of dancing with my grandchildren. I have 6 now.
Okay.
And a few years ago, like I think it was, no, it wasn't during COVID, but it was prior to COVID. My whole family was over at my house for something, and I don't remember. And I'm obviously, with my love of music and I love dance, I'm always having like impromptu dance parties. And this song was the hit of the time, and my granddaughters loved it, and they could get all sassy with it, and stuff like that. And we were just having a ball, recording video and just having a dance party. So whenever I hear that song, No Excuses, I go straight to that memory, and it's just a joyful time for me with my grandkids. Yeah.
No, that sounds beautiful. Um,
Mm.
being in the RV, how does this relate to family? Are they scattered around with your kids or
Yeah, I
your
got some in California, some in Arizona, some in Texas. So it actually makes it very convenient to go visit without having to impose on anybody, which is what I do.
I'm gonna pull up, I'll be close to your house
Yep.
and
I'll be in a
but I'm going
campground over
back to
here.
mine.
Exactly. But I'm sleeping in my own bed. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that way you get to spread your time as you
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of part of the plan too, as I realized, as my parents were declining. Sorry. They were they were living with me for a time, and then my dad had Parkinson's, and so he was falling, and I was encouraged by others that are more advanced in the elder care business industry, that it was only going to get worse, and if he was to fall and break his hip, mom and dad would be separated for the rest of their life. But if I was to put them both in assisted living together, if dad was to fall, mom would stay with him. And that
yeah.
just really made more sense to all of us. And so once that happened, I didn't need the big house that I was living in anymore. And my kids were spread out all over the place. So it really just made sense. Well, I'm going to get a trailer so I can just be mobile and be able to be with all, see all of my family. And so that's kind of what began it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. Um, tell me a little bit more about the WKRP.
The WKRP. Yeah, that is okay. So while I was before COVID, I'd had actually created a program for radio people. I was trying to break into bringing mental health training with to the radio industry, and I had developed this program. And badass is an acronym, but I knew I wanted an acronym that would be relatable to radio. Still same principles, but one for radio. Well, WKRP, it was a television show in the 70s that about a radio station in Cincinnati, and it's still
Hmm.
like big in the industry. The radio industry still knows the whole WKRP. In fact, the main character, the owner of the station, I can't remember his name in the show, but they called him Big Guy.
Hmm.
Even me, even at our radio station with my family, that was the nameplate on my dad's door. Big Guy. It didn't have his name, it was Big Guy. And so WKRP was very meaningful for me. So after I went to the NAB show, and I'm promoting, this was just this last April, promoting Dead Air, the day the music died. This is like re-entry into the broadcast field. It became, well, what else do you do? And I was telling him about my mental health practice, and that I also speak on mental health and do training. And I get this feedback, oh my gosh, we could so use that right now. And so that just prompted me. It's like, okay, why don't I make my program that I didn't really promote very well because COVID happened and all that? Why don't I take those notes in that program and put it into a book?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I created the book. So the WKRP is the acronym for these tools. So W is winning mindset, the K is know thyself, The R is respect and responsibility, and the P is positive psychology. And so these are the methods and tools that I'm now promoting to the radio industry to help them flip the format on their fear of failure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that book just came out like recently, like November 11th, just came out.
Okay, this is
Brand
brand
new.
new.
Brand new. Brand spanking new. Just released it. Yeah.
And how is it resonating with the industry?
Well, it's resonating pretty well. I've already been invited to present material at several different conferences coming up. I was invited by a syndicated radio host who ought to be on his show just the other night on 200 radio stations. So yeah, and the radio trades picked up the press release and are promoting it. Still too soon to tell about sales, but I think I'm going to be super busy in 2026. Yeah.
Are you, from the book, will you try to create an online course or anything that could be developed from that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm in learning mode. One of my greatest strengths is a learner, and so I'm in learning mode. So everything that I've been doing, I'm doing it single-handedly. I don't have a team. So my
Right.
my books, the editing, the publishing, the getting it up on Amazon, the marketing, the emails, the social media posts, the graphics, it's all me. So yes, absolutely. I already have a course for badass. And so I'm going to implement that and integrate them somehow together. And
Hmm.
I haven't decided yet if I'm going to make it an online community or an app or what, but I am developing a course and I'm kind of like taking polls and kind of getting some feedback before I do. I want to make sure that it resonates with them, because when I started to write it, I wanted to make sure that we didn't have to wait for corporate to approve a program. I could make it available to the individual you know so I want to make it where it's like if you're an individual and you want to work on your mental health, great, here's what's for you. If you're a corporation and you want to work on it for your team, I've got a team building program also. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So they can do it almost discreetly, independent,
Yeah,
if they want to,
that would
anonymously,
be
maybe.
ideal. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Um, we get to track 5. This
Mm-hmm.
is Bob Seger, Old Time Rock
Yeah.
and Roll.
Old time rock and roll. Yeah. Okay, so this is after my heart issue and I'm better now. Okay. And I had gone to grad school and I don't think I was interning yet, but you have to be involved with an organization that treats mental health, to finish your degree, right? So I
Yeah.
was I was volunteering for this grief group for children. And in town, this is still in Victorville, and in town there was a fundraiser that was put on by I don't even remember who, but they gave the cash award to the nonprofit, and so it was a thing. It was kind of like a Dancing with the Stars kind of
Hmm.
event where they would get different nonprofits to compete against each other for prize money. And so I volunteered to participate because I was already volunteering for this group and I love dance. And it was kind of, for me, it was a rite of passage because just months earlier, I was so weak and so frail that I could barely make it from my bed to the couch without having to stop to rest with the heart failure. But now I was cured and now I felt better. And the idea of being able to dance was just so profound for me. And so
Yeah.
they allowed me to do this, and the theme was television musicals or was musicals, movie musicals. But we were so late in the game, we had to like get really clever. And so this was one of the songs from Risky Business, right? With
Hmm.
Tom
Yeah. Yeah.
Cruise. We did like Risky Business and Lady Gaga, and I can't remember exactly. We did like a melody to kind of like bring in a bunch of movies together. And so whenever I hear Old Time Rock and Roll, that reminds me of being strong enough again after recovering from heart failure and jumping through a lot of hoops that I was able to do a dance and perform. And it was so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So was
Yeah.
the performance similar to Tom Cruise's performance? Was that the kind of
Well, we started it out that way. Yeah, we wore boxer shorts and a button-down shirt. It was just me and one gentleman, and so we did that. And we danced in our socks,
Yeah.
so that was how we did it. The whole dance wasn't. We just kind of like did the entrance of Tom Cruise, and we had like three different songs, and one was like "Shake Your Tail Feather," which was from the Blues Brothers, and
Hmm.
then there was the third song. I can't remember. I can't remember what the third song was now, but we had like three songs that we did a medley to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think this is like the third time that Bob Seger's come up on the podcast.
Really?
So his music definitely resonates and is
Yeah.
a trigger for a lot of people. And so
Yeah.
this is the first time this song, but
Yeah.
um, but for sure
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
Um, what's going to be next for you in regards to you said you're going to work on this the new book, and then in regards to just the radio relationship, is this something that is you want to just try to keep connecting with more stations across the country, or how are you going to link with most of those?
Yeah, so there's been a few, like I said, there's been a few invitations already for me to go out to different conference type events and present this material. So
Mm.
I absolutely will be pursuing, mental health in the radio industry. I've made some really good connections. I have a co-author or a collaborator with my book, flipping the format on the fear of failure. He's a pretty heavy hitter in the industry, and I'm so thrilled that he was agreeable to partner with me. So he'll help get some connections going as well with that. So that's definitely happening. Another tour is kind of in the works, but I don't know if I'll be taking the trailer or I'll have to fly places because I have to like coordinate the logistics. But I've already been invited to three radio stations to do another Radio Is Not Dead, but they're all in like Ohio and Illinois and back east. So I have to figure out, okay, how I'm gonna get there, but also some of the conferences are in the same area. So it'll kind of work. So I'm doing that, but I'm also like I've already started working on my next novel. So I don't think I have another mental health book in me. There's no point. I've got several already, but crafting novels was really my lifelong dream. And so Dead Air was just the launching pad for crafting novels. So I'm already working on the next one. So I'll be doing a little marketing and PR for flipping the format while doing conferences and things like that and speaking engagements and maybe some coaching, but also writing my next novel.
And the novel, it's going to be fiction or nonfiction?
It'll be nonfiction. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
stories. But this is actually a trilogy. It's a very ambitious project, but it's
Wow.
one that it will not leave me alone. So I have to keep working on it. So, but I have probably 20 novels, titles, ideas, thoughts, notes I've already got in a folder. So this is just one of them that's surfaced first.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
We come to track 6.
Okay.
This is MC Hammer. You can't touch
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Going back to my radio days, so it's 1990 and I'm a mom by this time. So we had flipped formats. Now we're a hip hop station, so we're no longer the oldie station or whatever I don't remember how it all comes together, but in the 90s we were a hip hop, top 40 station. And so the MC Hammer was a big hit on the radio. And I was always a dancer. That's my passion was dancing. So as a young girl, I was always dancing. And but this music was now different that we're playing on the radio. And I was doing a shift in the studio. Is that we were automated. So we normally I wouldn't sit in the studio for an entire shift, but we had a little mechanical or a technical issue which caused me to have to sit in the studio and run my air shift. So I was listening to the music without being distracted with other projects. And it
Hmm.
caused me to think like, wouldn't it be fun? I think the song that influenced this idea was It was when David Bowie and Mick Jagger redid the song Dancing in the Streets from Martha and the Vandellas. And it
Hmm.
was a big hit. And I'm like imagining dancing in the streets, at radio promotions and parades and stuff like that. And the fair was coming up, and we always had a big presence with the county fair. And so my little creative mind sitting in the studio is like, I'm gonna recruit some cheerleader dancer type people to kind of do like a Laker girl kind of thing for the radio station.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I created a soundtrack for what they would perform and whatever, and MC Hammer for the 3 year, and I called them the Q Crew. Our radio station's call letters was KVVQ, and this little squad of dancers lasted about 3 years, running around running around doing remotes, appearing in parades, performing at the fair. And our main thing was that we would go and perform at elementary schools with a say no to drugs message, and basically like we get involved in something that we love to do, dance, blah 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 blah, say no to drugs, and the schools would let us come and perform. And so the
Mm.
MC Hammer song was like the top one. The kids would go crazy for that number, and so that song makes my badass soundtrack because that was probably the best time I had in radio. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
interesting because I mean, of course, I am very familiar with the song when it first came out in the 90s. And it got in different circles, it was either positive or depending
right,
on, if you're
yeah,
different types of hip hop or whatever. But I just remember listening to it since getting your playlist and hearing the words and kind of having some time to just listen to it rather than it being and
right,
being distracted. And it's actually to give it more credit than probably maybe where I was when I first heard it and wasn't so interested in it because I felt it was so huge and it
yeah,
was like on everything. I think it was
yeah,
it went beyond hip hop stations. I think when it
yeah,
was because it was such a big hit. But
yeah.
listening to uh and have a lot of respect for MC Hammer and this song and
Mhm.
what he made and
Yeah,
I'm sure it's kind of comes around or evolved but it
yeah.
was an interesting to hear the song on your playlist and now know the story behind it, which
Now the
is
story
really
behind it.
pretty.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was danceable. It was a fun #1 hit, and the kids loved it. So we just rocked it for 3 years. So usually you're going to change up the numbers, the dance numbers, but no, you can't touch this was a staple. In fact, even now when I do my badass workshop, I call it a badass certification class, and I use that number. I actually play the video of the dance, and I
Hmm.
do, and I show because I have it on video, and I have it like the original one at the fair, and then years later where I'm now in it doing these performances, and then I still have the muscle memory of the dance. So it's like I can be playing the video behind me, and I'm doing it for my audience right now live, and they're like, "This
Yeah.
is amazing," But it's one of those things where in psychologies you have that muscle memory of really good memory of happiness things, and it's like it's good to tap into those. Helps boost the mood.
So dancing is still a big part of your life now?
Well, it would be if I wasn't so old. But yeah. Yeah, I never gave up. I've always danced, and so that's still my favorite form of exercise is dancing. Yeah.
But you incorporate it into your
My
uh
workshop.
your
Yeah.
workshop. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's all music. So it's like I introduce the song and I play a clip of it, and it really, like it did with you, it resonates. It sound. But I don't tell them the song before I tell the story. So what I do in the class is I tell the story, and like on the radio, I hit the song, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cool!" But now they know the story, and then they hear the song.
Yeah.
So their emotions have already been stirred up. So now they're also attaching my song. It's like I've had people like text me, it's like, "I just heard Kansas Carry on Wayward Son today and thought of you." And I'm like, "Oh, good, my little plan works." You
Yeah, yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um we get to track 7.
yeah,
This is Mark Ronson with Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk.
yeah, yeah. Um, I picked that song when I was introducing the License to Be Badass brand, and I wanted to create a kind of like a flash mob at a Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting that I'd had, arranged.
Hmm.
So that was the song that we chose to do, and I was able to recruit my daughter and my granddaughters, the guy that did memberships for the Chamber of Commerce, somebody from the city that represented, and some other people. And they were all the people that attended the mixer were just really surprised that we did this little flash mob dance while I'm introducing the License to Be Badass and the Badass class and the music connection and everything. And so that was the song that we decided to learn and use. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great song.
Yeah.
And obviously Mark Ronson's produced and done so many, worked with
Hmm.
so many artists. I think he's, creates a lot of music and then works with other amazing artists that he's worked with. Bruno Mars, I think I don't know if this was a couple of songs he's done with him, but this is obviously
Yeah.
a big hit
I
and
think it was
just,
the first one. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
2014. But just hearing, how the song evolved, it's a kind of, and listen to this again too. Because I was familiar with the song already, but um so being in your RV, tell me a little bit like what's your long-term plan with this? Is this something you're going to stay for a couple more years, or do you think you're going to park
I
it
don't,
at some point?
I know eventually I will need to park it, but I'm not really there yet. So I don't know. I'm still just going with the flow. I'm here stationary for the winter.
Hmm.
While I was out on my little 5 month tour seeing radio stations, I also had a lot of like technical issues that were very overwhelming, and I was out of my comfort zone like every day. So it was sort of, like, now that it's all behind me, I'm like, whoo, I got through it. But I'm not
Yeah.
very eager to get out there again yet. So I'm kind of like regrouping, and I know that 2026 is going to mean more travel, but I don't know what it's going to look like yet until I see what conferences I might be able to book. But I am I'm in no desire to purchase a house or live in a condo or an apartment. If anything, I'll buy a little piece of property and park my trailer on it, you
Yeah.
know, when the time comes that I need to stop, or there's full-time RV parks that are really reasonably priced that I could live in. I just need to decide where I want to land, and that's kind of the mystery right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're doing the podcast, are you still doing Radio's Not Dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's you need to be somewhere that you can have at least a
Access
signal.
to radio stations. Well, no, it's like it's just me going to visit radio stations and recording it. So it doesn't really matter where I'm at. I just got to be in proximity to them, you know.
Uh,
Yeah. So like when I was invited to Hugo, Oklahoma, I went to Hugo, Oklahoma. When I was invited to what was it? Kentucky, I went to Kentucky. When I was invited to Nashville, I went to Nashville, but I was in Kentucky, and Nashville was a 2 hour drive. I didn't need to take the trailer. I just drove to Nashville, you
mhm.
know. And then in South Dakota, I stayed for a week in South Dakota, but I only saw the radio station one day. That was it, But then when I went to Wyoming, I stayed at the radio station's parking lot right in front of the station for a couple days. So it really depends on what they offer me, where I go. But yeah, right now I'm stationary. So if I was to do any more Radio Is Not Dead recordings, I would probably do a radius and see who's about 2 hours away and hit them up and go record them. There's probably a
Yeah.
couple stations in Phoenix I could find, you know, that'll let me play my little game, Yeah.
Are there any stations that you've met and it reminds you of the old days of being, with your dad and having the station in California?
No, not yet.
No.
No, because ours was a very unique situation with the whole family running it. I mean, it was just an extension of home, you
Yeah.
know. But of course, with all the family dysfunction that goes along with it, I don't want to say it was like, oh, it was such a joyful experience. Like, oh no, we had the sibling rivalry, we had the rebelliousness, we had all sorts of that going on. But so no, I've not ever run into a station
I
similar.
mean, I hate to say it, but honestly, Kelly, this could be a pretty cool story. Even maybe a sitcom or, I don't know about comedy
Yeah,
for sure, but
yeah.
a TV type of series where you
I know.
have the family running a radio station. It's kind of
Like
something
all the
that
drama that
is.
I know I have considered writing it before, but it's like I felt like all my family members need to be dead for that to happen. And guess what?
Oh no.
They are now. My mom
Okay.
and dad and my oldest brother Brad have gone have left are gone now too. So there's only my brother Scott and I left out of the family of six. And so now I'm like, I could write those stories. part of my part of my grief work, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I think it would be interesting just because of the dynamic of the family, but
The family
also
business and all the
what
drama
it
that goes on
is.
behind the scenes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Stuff you'd never know went on, you know. Although it's like I would say ours was pretty boring. When I think about writing it as a story, it's like, oh, I've got to amplify that whole scenario because it's not as exciting as drama would be, but I can at least use it as a launching pad or a basis of a conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We get to track 8,
Yeah.
Jelly Roll. I'm
Yeah.
not, I
I'm
am
not
not
okay.
okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that with Jelly Roll?
No, I was gonna say
Yeah.
I heard his name, and I think another guest has picked one of his
Right.
other songs, but not this one. And
Yeah.
so I did some digging and
Yeah.
obviously checked it out. But
Yeah, it's new to me too. So I added this one to the list because I thought it's like I wanted a current, you know, to come in there and something that has impacted me recently. And I discovered this song during the time where my mom died 7 or 8 months ago. My dad only died less than 2 years ago.
mhm.
Lots of changes in my life, and kind of gravitated toward country music and discovered this Jelly Roll song, and it just really hit me even to the extent where I sent it to my son, who's also really grieving his grandparents. And so we kind of bonded, like, I'm not okay, but it's all going to be all right. And that's what the lyrics are about, you know, is basically it's exactly what we were going through at that moment, just this past summer.
Yeah.
So that's a brand new one for me, and it's kind of that emotional healing one that you were talking about earlier with that other woman. We've been through a lot of trauma, my son and I together, dealing with the the ordeal of caring for my parents and whatnot, and then them passing, and it's been so emotional and so. But this helped me get through. It's like I am not okay, but it's all going to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the kind of what I took around the song as I was listening to it, and also doing some digging onto who he is, because obviously I
right,
wasn't that familiar with him, and then realizing, he obviously had a very troubled
very right.
background.
Yeah.
Started in hip hop, then kind of moved into kind of rock and country,
Hmm.
and he's got a very interesting sound, but again leaned into his pain and
Yeah.
created and worked it to his for the better, rather than just letting it eat from within. So it sounds like he's definitely, and I know the other guest who picked this, one of his other songs really could resonate, I guess, with a breakup and with something going through a tragedy.
Yeah.
So it sounds like his music has definitely impacted quite a lot. This is quite recent, this song. I think it's come out in
Yeah, I
23.
think it's like last year or so. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know how long he's been going in
I don't
general.
either. Honestly, it's like I said, I've been kind of out of it, you know, in trailer life, it's very isolating, you know, so it's like, who's out there now? I don't even know what new music is. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, in regards to your family, though, is this something, that connecting with them and staying in touch with them, besides visiting them, but having a relationship with them as you travel around, and they're kind of rooted in certain cities and stuff with their life?
Yeah, it makes things challenging mainly just because their kids are in school. So it's like, so when do you really go visit? You know? And then they have lives that they lead. So, you know, when I go back to California, I've got friends and business colleagues because that's where I was originating from, and that's where my daughter and my two granddaughters are.
Mhm.
My son was actually in Alaska for a while, and he's just returned to Arizona. So I didn't see him for many months. And then, you know, it's hard to get to my daughter in Texas. So yeah, it makes it challenging, but thank God we have Zoom and we have texting and we have chats that we can stay in touch, kind of like a lot of families these days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It is, and I know the feeling traveling around, having family in the States as well. So
Yeah.
long
Yep.
distance. We're
Yeah.
coming to track 9. Uh,
Okay.
Again, this is an older rock band, Nazareth, Hair
Oh
of the
yeah.
Dog.
Yeah. That's a beefy song, and it's not really a personal meaning for me but it's like when I had my heart stuff. I had it's like you think the heart issue was caused by stress. It's like I didn't really put all the two and two together, but I had I had had a truck, a Ford F-150 that was like a, like a mom's soccer mobile. It was great for carting kids around. It was very utility. But my daughter, who was 17 at the time, had wrecked it and totaled it. And so my son was coming up to driving, and it's like he wasn't even responsible. So I was going to replace it with a vehicle that I would never let my son drive.
Hmm.
So I bought a 2006 Mustang GT. It was my fourth Mustang. That was my favorite car, still is my favorite car. And so I bought that GT to replace the truck. And but I think it was only 3 months later after I bought the car, had the heart failure and was not allowed to drive for months. I couldn't
Wow.
drive, so my car sat in the garage. I couldn't. Nobody was driving it. I wouldn't let anybody drive my brand new car that I haven't even been able to drive yet. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And so I don't really know how this happened, but there were CDs that were already in the CD player, and I think my son had racked them in there. It was like a six CD player, and they would all spin around. And so the day that my doctor gave me permission, okay, you can go ahead and drive now. That song, Nazareth, Hair of the Dog, was the very first song that came out of the stereo when I hit the accelerator in that Mustang and just felt that freedom and that sense of healing and I'm back or whatever. And so that song just represents that badass car that would just rumble down the street, giving me that confidence that I'm healed now. So
Yeah.
the lyrics or nothing like that have anything to do with me. It's the cowbell, it's the pounding beat, and it's like now you're messing with the son of a bitch. It was like, oh, I'm here. Yeah, that's what it means. Yep.
I didn't remember this song. I obviously remember Nazareth, but not very
Yeah.
strong relationship with him or anything. But listening to it, I was like, wow, this is so
A
tight.
badass. Nice song. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
was like, and it was kind of like Bad Company. That was another one that I
Yeah.
just remember hearing somewhere, and I never was
I really
into
like
them, but
that.
then when I heard it,
Yeah.
it was like clicked,
Yeah.
and then it was kind of
Yeah.
now they were on my radar. And this song in particular, I was just like, wow, I don't know why I don't remember this song in particular or this hearing it, and
Yeah.
it sounds like a band could do this today, and it would be as tight as their version if you get
Mhm.
a band like
Yeah.
playing it because it's the sound is still very relevant,
Right.
but it's hard for me to explain it because I'm listening to some bands and I think, wow, I love that song, but it doesn't really. It's so the production and how it sounded. Whereas this, I feel like their song just so strong, and it's
Well,
not
I think it
trying to
goes
be
back, doesn't it
anything
go
than
back
what
to
it
the early
was.
70s or 60s? It's a pretty old group. And so they were, and so I'm not really familiar with Nazareth the band, but I know that any musician that I've ever been involved with really admires Nazareth the band,
Yeah,
because they were
this is from
tight.
1975, I think. This song.
1975. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's pretty
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
If people are new to you and they haven't familiar, but they find you, they listen to hear you on a podcast or an interview, and they're trying to connect with you to potentially work with you.
Hmm.
What are you? Do you work with individuals that just find you, or are you really just kind of working through, the clients that you have and building from that, the radio industry, etc.?
Well, my psychotherapy practice is full. So I use that for, psychotherapy. I'm licensed in California. But as far as coaching goes, it's like, yeah, I'm happy to work with anybody who basically wants to flip their format on fear. They don't have to be in radio. I mean, that was
Right.
initially the license to be badass origin was here's the tools you need to be badass. So basically it's like any badasses out there, yes, I'd love to work with you and get you licensed. So that way you have that credibility of being a badass. Yeah. Because I fully believe that anybody like you and me, it's like we've gone through stuff and we're not giving up and we're still trying to grow or live our lives, and we've maybe lost a home or had a health crisis or been through a divorce or a tragedy or whatever, and you're still standing, you're a badass.
Yeah.
You just need to be reminded that you're a badass, and that's what it's all about. So yes, I would, all takers. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the best place for people to contact you?
Probably through my website, kellyorchard.com. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple of links where they could connect with me. there. Yeah, or
Are
just
you
shoot
on
me.
social media as well or no?
Oh yeah, I'm all over. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I have a Substack blog as well now,
Oh.
that I'm promoting. So yeah, and I have a YouTube channel. So and everything is just Kelly Orchard. I keep it really simple. Just look for Kelly Orchard and you'll find me. If you were to search me, you'll find probably all my links and all of my articles and everything I've ever done is all out there. It's when I look at it myself, I'm like, geez, you've been at this for a while, you know? Yeah. Yep.
Kelly, we come to track 10. This is Olly Murs,
Oh yeah.
Troublemaker.
Yeah. It's just a really fun, danceable song. And my daughter actually is the one who introduced it to me a few years ago. I think the song was already old before she introduced it to me. And she goes, I just heard this song and it totally reminded me of you. It's totally a song for you, Mom. And I can't stop listening to it. I love it. I love the beat to it. It does make me want to dance. And I love the whole idea of troublemaker, because he's fascinated by her, but he's going to get in trouble, because she's
Hmm.
like so fascinated. So it doesn't have like a special emotional meaning for me. This one to me is just like it's fun and I dance to it every time I hear it. And sometimes before I fall asleep, I'll watch the video of it because I just love the beat to it as a dancer. Yeah.
I think the guy is originally from the UK. Maybe
Is
he
he?
got started on X Factor or something. And this song in particular is with a Florida rapper,
Yeah.
Florida,
Flo Rida. Yeah. His name's
Florida.
Flo Rida. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but definitely interesting sound
Yeah.
in the song.
Yeah.
Obviously it's very danceable and kind of
Yeah.
upbeat.
It's just fun. Yeah. It's just fun. I like it because it's fun. Yeah.
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 And your family's music, are they very eclectic with their kind of what they listen to?
Yeah. Well, I have a memory, childhood memory of being in my room listening to my music. And say like I said, I was kind of all over the board as a kid because I would just get all these music. So, I was listening to like Donnie and Marie Osmond and the Jackson 5, and
Hmm.
things like that. Those were dance things that I listened to. Go across the hallway and my brother Scott, who is older in or closest to age than me, he's got, Kiss and the Rolling Stones going on because he's in a rock band. He's a singer in a rock band, so he's playing Led Zeppelin and the Stones and Aerosmith. You go down to the other hallway where my brother Buck would be, and it would be like Toto in Kansas. My brother Brad was into Elton John and Bad Company. If I was to go downstairs, my mom would be listening to gospel music, and my dad would probably be listening to Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. So
Hmm.
yes, my mom was like old country, like Patsy Cline and stuff like that, and gospel, like on Ernest Tubbs and stuff like that. And then my dad was, being in radio, he's like Sonny, I mean, you could not play Name That Tune with my dad because he knew them all, but his favorites were like Elvis and Sonny and Cher and Perry Como, and that's the kind of stuff he would listen to, like Johnny Cash and Dean Martin, things like that. That was my dad's genre. So all over the place. Yeah.
And you saying with some of the clients you have, you encourage and support them to kind of make their own playlist to
Oh
kind of
yeah,
a
that's
healing. Is
that's
this
the
like a healing playlist for them?
Yeah, it's basically I have a whole program. I call it a badass certification class, and it's CPR for your mental health. And I'll run them through the what's and the hows and the whys, and then we'll discuss songs that matter to them and how they attach memories to it. So I always introduce it with this. I introduce these are my songs and these are my stories, but my stories and my songs are going to encourage you to come up with your song and your story, and that's what makes this a very unique and personal tool. It's universal, anybody can do it, but it's very specialized for just you,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I do that. I definitely encourage it and teach it to my clients. Yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much for being a guest and to share your songs. It's beautiful to know like that this playlist is your playlist in regards to kind of the concept of what 10 tracks is. So it was almost like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
match made for us to kind
It
of
was
share this.
kismet. It was
Yeah.
kismet, meant to be. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, And I wish you the best and more success with your upcoming, the new book that you got in, that you're thinking about,
Yeah.
going around, and safe travels all around as you're
Thank you.
driving through the country.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
I also share, when I say goodbye to people, I say, to be kind, be humble, be love. So I wish that to you.
Thank you very much. Right back at you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Pretty vacant times.
Are you ready?
Just saw his sports jacket.